Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Fnatic's Brush with a new concept of videos that I've named YAPNATIC. Name still in progress, but basically, I've gone a bit far from the usual podcasts and decided to do shorter formats where I'm just going to catch up in between the last videos, talk about some of the changes that happened within Fnatic, the latest results, and what's coming up in terms of next tournaments. And it just so happens that we are the day before World Start. Well, at least when this is recorded. And we haven't spoken since season's finals, so let's catch up a little bit. And season finals started really well, where Fnatic, for the first time since probably the beginning of the creation of season finals and quite some times even before that, actually managed to go through the whole way of the winners bracket and go straight to finals without the usual losers bracket miracle run. And it looked very good. Fnatic really looked like they turned the page this time, even against a very close game versus Mad Lions. But as you all know, a very disappointing finals, ending up in a 3-1 loss to Fnatic, made it that once again our dear beloved 2024 iteration of the Fnatic roster has lost in a final. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of deception, a lot of anger within the fans, calling heads all around. Obviously, what we've seen were some latent issues since summer finals, which were a few games where Fnatic once again couldn't close it after a gold lead, and even then didn't look as dominant, in my opinion, as they did during the summer finals. Now, with that said, obviously, quite a bit of time has gone past. We've had a lot of feedback from the different players on how they felt, especially from Noah, who was under a lot of, I would say, conversations about whether or not he should stay, about his performance. Were they good? Were they not good? And also following the fact that Dardo did a sort of quick interview, the deep dive, which is the new Fnatic format for the Fnatic Plus members, to have a conversations with those fans about the questions they may have, and I think also try to sort of cool down the heated fans that want answers and want a bunch of people fired. And Noah, who hadn't been on social networks for quite some time, took some, a few tweets to share with us, how he felt, the fact that he was thinking about. So the term he used was to retire or leave the team, but he explained, he gave a bit more context as to what he meant behind that, which was more the fact of wanting to be replaced because he felt like he wasn't at the level that was expected from him, and obviously with the pressure that he usually puts upon himself. Um, the other thing that we learned is that obviously he's been working with a psychologist, which is great news. There were a lot of questions about the fact that where it was Noah being taken care of psychologically in the first place, and with the performance coach basically just patching those areas between, making sure that the players maximize their performances and their psychological issues were being solved. And it was, cleared very quickly by Noah, who said, "Don't worry, guys, I'm being taken care of." And the organization has helped me get in touch with the right people. And, you know, it's quite normal that a team is not going to have a personal psychologist for the entire roster. It felt like a lot of people were saying, "Well, why does Fnatic doesn't hire a psychologist and instead hire a performance coach, and why don't they have both?" If you go back in time, you will see that it was actually the case with Reckless as well, where he revealed it a little bit later that he had his own psychologist. So it's not something that's completely new. But anyways, a lot of sort of water went under the bridge, and between then, time for the players to get a break, reset their batteries, and then or recharge their batteries is the preferred term. More like reset their minds and get back to work as they qualified for Worlds as the second seed for Europe. Now, what we've seen so far has been quite interesting. Champions Queue has opened up a few weeks ago. And for those of you who are definitely hungry to see what's happening for the Fnatic players that participate, have been watching probably the Kedro, Yamato streams, the POV of certain players. Something must have stood out. The first one, for me at least, was the fact that No Engine have been doing a lot and completely destroying any opposition that they've been facing in those Champions Queue. It really reminded me of them when they were doing at the beginning of the season, and the hype was enormous for June, who had just joined Fnatic back then, because it felt like the synergy were there. They were, both in lane and in the mid game, really dominant, and we're getting the same picture again. And as much as you want to stay controlled because Worlds is Worlds, we're going to be facing, the best of LCK, LPL, and even LCS, who apparently seems to be very competitive this year. So there's not going to be any easy opponent, which makes it more exciting when you think about it. But No Engine have been smashing it. There's been a couple of games where it's been the whole of Fnatic bar Humanoid, who's preferred to do a solo queue, which that's his choice. If you've been looking up his Instagram stories, he feels very confident, as he usually does. But it feels like it might be a reflection on how well their practice is going. There's already a bunch of echoes about Fnatic doing well, which has been the trend this year. Unfortunately, we haven't had those results on stage yet, so maybe this is the time to finally see it. And as well as Razork and Oscar doing really, really well, especially Oscar versus Buipo. They've been facing each other quite a bit. Buipo's been quite critical about Fnatic and got checked by Oscar a few games. So that was quite enjoyable to watch, but especially Razork, who's played across the games, at least I've seen. It's been quite impressive. He's taken the Shyvana as well, which Levi has played in the play-in stage. So they're cooking something. They're definitely cooking something. So I'm looking forward to it personally. First opponent is going to be DK, which is going to be Humanoid versus Showmaker. Showmaker, who has praised a Humanoid in their LCK Worlds press conference. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting matchup for sure. I'm looking forward to it. Lucid versus Razork as well. I think that's gonna be one of the matchups we're looking at. And of course, Noah versus Aiming. Aiming, who has been a standout ADC in the LCK. So I think personally, and I've seen a lot of casters and professionals say this as well, that DK was probably the best draw for Fnatic, and this is where we're going to see where they stand. Razok spoke about a new Fnatic in Ashley Kang's recent interview. DK versus Fnatic has been touted as the no macro versus no macro team, just pure brawl, hand stiff. So we'll see if that's the case. If one of those teams has finally decided to learn the macro, and also what type of picks we're going to see. You need to remind yourself that this is best of ones at the end of the day, and anything can happen. Usually we have the biggest upsets on the first few days, as it's still the best of ones. When it comes into the best of threes, qualifications, or losses, disqualifications, don't know what you want to call it. Basically, when you're out of the tournament, um, this is where it becomes a real test, basically. But this is the first game we're going to be looking at and sort of set our barometer for Fnatic. Definitely hoping that we get a good surprise. I don't know what you guys think. If you're confident, if you've seen some of the Challenger Q's games, some of the interviews, but you know, it's Worlds. The hype is here. Everyone on the Fnatic train, and I believe that they can go and get a quarterfinal spot, and then we'll see what happens. From what's been told in terms of potential roster changes, the first rumors are saying that there are no changes that are expected. So I would say that's pretty interesting that we're actually building a project on the long term. The fact that you have to consider that Oscar and Noah finally have their first complete year in the LEC. Same for Jun. Obviously, he had some time in the LCK, but different league, different adaptation. So it will be interesting to see if the same five are kept with the same coaching staff, more or less. Let's see what happens. There were some question marks about Oscar potentially leaving because his contract expires this year, and obviously, this brings up the question that one of the wishes from Dardo and the top management is that if possible we don't let players leave on free agency, at least as few as possible. We've taken the lessons from Caps, from Reckless, which were high value players who've gone to our opposition for free. Now, are we going to see potentially a contract renewing for Oscar during or after Worlds? It's possible. They'll probably give us the trend of what's going to be happening for next year. In my opinion, I think if we do see an announcement about Oscar being renewed, it's probably a signal that the roster is going to stay the same five, and potentially we're going to see something that's going to be even greater than what we saw this year. But in any case, right now let's focus for Worlds. So we're going to let the few days go by until the Swiss stage is over, and I'll catch you guys again to go over Swiss stage, hoping to talk about Fnatic qualification into playoffs. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoy the new format. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll catch you for another episode in roughly a week. Until then, always Fnatic. Bye bye, guys.